That sounds very paranoid, doesn't it? But this is not so much about paranoia, but the state of the world and human nature itself. There's a lot of tribalism in the world, in a good way and a bad way, and it's been weaponized to divide and conquer. Is a huge amount of deliberate control to get people to side with whatever side. It's a lot of manipulation going on. Chase Hughes does talk about FATE, a acronym, and he talks about the letters meaning focus, authority, tribalism, and emotion. That's definitely a model going on in America since the Trump administration the first time and the second time around. You get people to focus on one particular aspect. There's a lot of repetition over all this. And media outlets that are biased in favor of the Trump administration will just keep the repetition drumming away, get people to focus on this one thing while other media outlets are not really bothering as much. And you go and find out who owns the news outlets or whichever. I've mentioned this before. So the information being so controlled to start with equals a bit of a manipulation to you to start with, because it's not the lenience towards being passionate about finding out what is true and analysing it is more left out in favour of just monetization, capitalism, and get people consuming, being entertained, but the facts don't actually matter. And that's a big problem. I have an article at Exploratory Minds Project. The website is still not on par with what I'm envisioning because time, energy, money. There'll be a few changes to the layout, perhaps here and there, that kind of thing. This is mainly a blog. During the nasty side of COVID, I generated this kind of like social network thing where a few friends of mine I know in person joined, and other people who joined who I just knew through the internet. Not going to be doing that again. It's too much hard work. Very, very cool software. It was interesting to learn about that. Again, going back to the acronym FATE. So the focus thing is there. And any authority that gets bought, any politician will get bought by, literally bought. Like, they have a sudden change of heart because there's money in it for them. They're very self-interested. So you got to look at the authority figures being interviewed on that which you're being like kind of forced to focus on. And these are psychological operations, definitely. And again, not in a paranoid conspiracy way. It doesn't take like a big corporation and a big intelligence agency to do a psyop on you. It takes a few media outlets who are very biased because they've been bought, or there's something in it for them. They're selfish and not passionate about the actual facts here as much as running their mouth because they've been bought, and repeating that because it really is crucial and important for people to realize what the hell is actually going on. The weaponization of social media is a thing, and really to the erroneous ways it's being exploited equals unsocial media. But then, this is what we've always done. Technology prowess gains traction, development, and leaves our wisdom behind. And we slowly catch up and go, oh, yeah, this is a better way to use this and to correct detriments being used. And then by the time we've caught up, technology development, evolution outstrips our wisdom yet again, and we have to catch up all over again. That seems to be very true throughout the history of the development of the internet, from you know, from basic dial-up days to Web 2.0 and further on. So what we have is, again, going back to the acronym, you got the authority, sudden change of heart. So you got the focus and the authority, F, A, and tribalism. You get a lot of smear campaigning from the biasness, the favoring. Look at Trump administration, smear campaigned, the Biden administration over and over, Sleepy Joe, or Hunter Biden's drug abuse, and so on. It's very clear that Trump's one of Trump's son is I don't know, whether it's crack or whatever, he's some kind of addict. Let alone himself. Trump has this, after everything he says, sniffs a lot, and I wonder if that's because he's snorting a lot of things. Don't actually know. I don't actually know. However, the sign, plenty of bells and whistles are there to show that this guy he's clinically insane, really. Regardless, they're now talking about the Trump administration, as expected, as I've warned people. He wants to do away with America's constitution, and a lot of problems in America always, the argument was like, oh, that's against the constitution. It always seemed to come back to that and worry that it's under threat. Now he wants to do away with it, claiming that he hates it. He said he wanted to be a dictator. Should have took him seriously instead of voting him back in. But then this is part of the problem. The psychological operations are going on where, the excessive tribalism part of this keeps people separated and doubling down, because it's an imagined enemy encouraging our mammalian brain, not the higher thinking neocortex. We are emotional first before we're critical thinking second. The newest part of our brain development in our evolution is a neocortex, and it's the larger part of the brain that covers what is at the center, which would be the mammalian brain, the emotional side. The thing with the mammalian brain, though, is it doesn't need, it's a constant observer. Chase Hughes talks about this. Look up Chase Hughes' work. Constant observer, always watching. But it doesn't speak a language or any language. It speaks intuition, emotion, feelings. And when people say, oh, I don't feel too good about this, they don't understand why. So they react emotionally, and not emotion is not directed. It's not ideal for today's world. It was more ideal for our tribal times when we were cavemen. So we would just revert back to our tribe and make sure everyone's okay and look after each other. But that's no longer, although that's a valid thing, but it's no longer just that's needed. Our higher thinking is crucial, but a lot of higher thinking is by design deliberately dismissed in America, very much so. And now look at it, because defunding the education, defunding libraries, all this is happening deliberately, because if you start to thinking smarter and critical and really analysing things, you're going to get too smart to be too easily controlled. But now you don't want that, because dictatorship wants to be a thing. Trump is clearly a puppet for a deeper cause. And that deeper cause is a side effect for an even deeper cause. The whole thing has gone wrong. And there's a very big delusion that seems to be going on at the core of this in America, is that people are deluded, is an attempt to delude Americans to think that they are the only country who was, past tense, trying a social experiment around democracy, republic, or republic similar to democracy, whichever. And they was kind of both. I was getting annoyed saying, pick a lane, which are you? But they was kind of doing both. Now they're not doing either. They're under a dictatorship. It does not matter in any way, shape, or form if Trump goes in serious ill health, that he is completely dysfunctional. He's dysfunctional anyway, but if he dies because of ill health or he's assassinated, you still have an installation of this problem that is now empowered and emboldened corrupt individuals to keep this control train going further. You have North Korea on steroids. You think there's an obesity problem in America? Well, before long that'll disappear because you won't even be able to afford a regular meal per day, let alone some weeks. By the time this is well underway. And so much is happening so fast. I mean, I like to be wrong on that. Trust me, I want to be wrong. But, so much is happening so fast, so quick. It's hard to keep up. And that's by design as well. Trump administration throws in many spanners in their work that are distractions to keep the tribalism going and keep the emotion going. So there's F, that's focus, A, authority, T, tribalism, and E, emotion. The word spells fate, and your fate of America. Well, the world has the citizenship in countries like the UK, for example, for decades. In public bars in the UK are far more public meeting places, I think, to converse and socialize than they have been in America States culture. Definitely in the UK there are meeting places and social hubs, and we were never ever talking about America in the grandiose way in which Americans were brainwashed into thinking that the whole world loves them. Politicians in other countries like the UK, I'm from the UK, so I'm referring to UK, would be communicating to and fro with America leadership here and there, and it would be all well and good. But it would be part of the ways even the politicians in America are brainwashed to the grandiose American dream that has never been realized. To quote Biden, for example, this is America second to none. If it was second to none during his administration, then it should never have fallen so quickly, so badly. And it always was fallen, just that administrations like the Trump administration lit the fuse and unveiling the curtain to see some raw, unwanted facts and truth of the horrible state of existence in America. But the mantras, the brainwashing here is keep waving the flag, keep chanting USA, USA, USA over and over, and keep the media, news outlets very biased and tribalistic, and keep that mantra going. This is America, second to none. This is America, that can't happen here. While you're too busy being tribalistic against the world, saying, oh, we're the best, everybody loves this, they want to come here. While that's going, is the attraction, the attention then to anything that's really going on, really factual, is dismissed, unnoticed, goes under the radar of the general public. True psychological operation going on, and not trying to scare you, and not trying to be some well-informed conspiracy nut. I'm saying what I see and what I've seen for decades. So we talk about an article. I have people saying how my typing is. It's terrible. Don't worry, the article is far more readable. I go over an article several times before it's published. So I want to make that clear. So I'll read it to you. It's Weaponisation of Social Networks is the title of the article. And again, the Trump administration used that a lot. The founders and owners of these so-called social networks are very biased because they don't want to be penalized by dictatorship like the Trump administration. So Meta turned around saying, oh, we're not fact-checking anything anymore. What's the point in having platforms where that is easier, makes it easier to access data and information from other people across the world if nothing is being fact-checked and anyone can get on and just bullshit their way and blag their way through a network that ruins the point of the network to start with, and the whole point is get people communicating with people, get more in touch with people. But if you're in touch with people who are just flat out liars, they are a detriment to your very mental health and other things, right? Everyone trying to outdo each other or manipulate other people, you are being manipulated every single day. So, very little seems to be, read this to you, very little seems to be realized on just how serious an issue this is. This is a complex problem requiring a depth of thought and consideration of the very safety and progress of society. Very little seems to be addressed in a global problem when it comes to the weaponization of social media today. From general bullying to stalking and harassment to the Trump administration admitting an alignment to Russia in 2025, every category of corruption is given away too much free rein on so-called social networks. All too often, if you give someone a mask, they will reveal themselves. The internet has a level of natural social discourse removed enough to be an equivalency of such a mask. It's not like your natural in-person communication when you can see a whole body of an individual, the body language, even what perfumes they're wearing, or it will be socially influencing you. There's so much that socially influences you. In-person contact way more than above and beyond than anything that goes through your screen and you're interacting with, even if it's live, whatever. It's way above and beyond because it's what we've done. It's who we are. It's how we've evolved. It is our natural state. And you remove a large part of these things and it ruins and gets in the way of our better functionality to discern, is this person trustworthy or not? And that has been heavily manipulated and used. The level of fakery on some dysfunctional YouTubers is phenomenal. It's like peeling an onion. You get one layer fake, another layer fake, and you wonder, where is the person here? Where is the real person? Is anything they're doing through the internet equate to anything that they really are at all? An individual named Aaron Costello comes to mind on that. Fake with face filters. Fake in a fantasy that she thinks she's some kind of super sleuth investigator. And fake with wears a lot of hair extensions, sometimes way too much makeup. Plastered on as like layers of fakery, pretending to be very intellectual and talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect and getting it all completely wrong. and appears to have some jealousy of people who don't need to boast that they are lenient towards intellect and intellectual debate, because they are that. Whereas people like Aaron would try to boast like, "Oh, I'm smart at this. I can do this. Watch this." Why are you trying to advertise you're so smart? If you are, then people would know. That's another crucial thing via the media outlets. Anything that promises the earth, promises great expertise, it's because it's nowhere even near what it's promising. And that, again, collectively has been America for decades. A country that promises to be the best, but never has been. And when you really get down to, wait a minute, this is all a lie. A whole country like America's really built on lies. I'm sorry, but it is. Perhaps we'll get into a separate video on that claim and to back that up and look at the history of America, the American Revolution, and moving on from there. So, the weaponization of social media today, from general bullying. I read that bit. Where am I? Yeah, this is a mask that we kind of, but there's no need to be adding more mask to the mask if you're true and genuine. But some people clearly do, like Aaron Costello. The category is perhaps the big irony here with the name of so-called social networks, and yet some of these platforms appear to be propagating and encouraging anti-social conduct, anti-progress, and anti-inclusion. Again, anything that promises excessively to be so good at something is because it's not. If it was so good, they wouldn't need to put the boasting in and try so hard to convince you. However, you might think if restrictions are imposed for one platform, they would have to be fairly imposed for all. And yes, to some degree, I happen to agree with that. However, with a mindset of the lead it leading our leaders, we have a very different view here. This is a problem where we need to realize those who are appointed as the label as the leader really should be realized as the general public lead our leaders. If the leaded, what's imagined to be the leaded or visualized, envisioned to be the leaded, the general public, if the leaders, sorry, I'm screwing this up a little bit. The leaders have to go where the lead go. Otherwise, they got no job. They got nobody to lead. Unless you install a dictatorship, then you got absolute control. Where the lead go, the leaders have to follow, right? Again, unless you got corrupt individuals in office that are obsessed with control, and to a level of, because they're so self-obsessed and want to look after their rich few imagined friends, because none of them really are friends, very rich, well-off narcissist is what you got, and dictatorship and so on. The problem with narcissism is that it will try to out-compete any other narcissist, and the fantasy of the narcissist is that they want that such self-importance and be on a pedestal. And I think people like Trump's fantasy of superiority would be in cahoots and communication with these narcissistic leaders, so-called leaders or dictators across the world. A dictator doesn't lead anything because there's no progress in the true envisioned way in which we think of human progress, science, biology, and here we have the Trump administration defunding education, defunding any progress in science, biology, RFK Jr., talking about conspiracy within vaccine and anti-science, anti-vax. The guy is a paranoid conspiracy theorist in charge of the health department. He did, a health authority for America. This is utter crazy. This is like some kind of movie you might see that would take the mick out of things getting so absurd. Is an idiocracy combined with a dictatorship. And most dictatorships are idiocratic anyway. They're just run by idiots. Kim Jong-un would blurt out his genetics are so efficient he does not have to defecate. Clearly a propaganda thing to self-grandiose, and clearly against biology, against science. Human bodies don't work that way. It'd be convenient and nice if they did, it would be very efficient, but you would look at biology across the whole planet, on whatever animal or whatever creature you are, there's always some waste that they need to expel from their bodies, right? So, after all this rant, let me see where I was reading. Social networks is antisocial. Yeah, we think that since human nature is really emotional first before it's critical thinking second, I put in brackets because I know people who might watch this might have this, or people who hear that said to them that will have a knee-jerk emotional response, not realizing they then prove my point. So we think that since human nature is really emotional first, before it's critical thinking second, and in brackets I put, yeah, I know some readers will argue they are always critical thinking first, and other articles will tell you why you are wrong. But try not to be emotional about it. Laws on control for higher thinking, laws on control for higher ranks in society would be wise. These laws would be against leaders using citizenship's general social networking. I think there should be some lenience to enable leaders who have some kind of networking to communicate with other politicians and so on. But the general, what's supplied to the general public via social platforms, YouTube, Blue Sky Social, I'm not going to mention. No, it's X, bugger that. Pointless. The point of these things is to empower the general public. And they really shouldn't be platforms for our leaders who should be leading, but where the leader go, the leaders have to follow, like I already said. But generally, you have to have some removal there, I think. For so many reasons, multiple reasons. Psychology of the emotional side on these platforms, having politicians blurt out something when they're a bit touchy, even if they were more altruistic individual, than whatever they blurt out on the social network might otherwise make them seen. Because again, there's that removal of the more natural ways to communicate as well, and this is partially why video conferencing took off so well. It increases a bit more closer to more natural communication. However, people were using face filters, trying to improve how they look and all that, again got in the way of that. Again, technology develops and bells and whistles develop, but we don't think about the wisest ways to use these or whether we need them at all. It leaves our wisdom behind, and then our wisdom eventually catches up thinking, oh, we screwed this up. And by the time you caught up, technology moves on again, and you got the same problem all over again. This is a very cyclical thing we keep doing. These laws would be against using citizenship, general social networking, but importantly, still have good means of communication to general public view reliable sources of news media who themselves need to play a better role as well. Clearly, there's a problem using the whole signal gate issue, right? Again, that is a chat that is there's levels of encryption, but you guaranteed Russia had all that pretty much on day one. All that communication in the signal chat, again, by the Trump administration, very amateur, very inept. Get these people away from what is rightfully the tools and bells and whistles for the general public, not higher authorities. But then you could argue is like, well, we don't want too much secrecy there. Well, you don't want too much transparency in the detriment to national security anyway. So there needs to be a line drawn and infrastructure for them to communicate with each other outside of what the general public use is there anyway. But they're not using it. They're defunding all this and cost cutting because they don't want to be having money going in that. They want it straight in their pocket, and it's not about money anymore. It's about moving the money around in order to enable more power and control. It's just power. It's addiction to power, and that's all it is. It's the full circle is gone. That they're programming the general public to be entertained and keep consuming, but facts don't matter. That side effect of dumbing people down has come full circle of dumb down those who try to dumb down the general public anyway. And this is what you got. Those in power addicted to power. And while you got that, full circle, side effects arise. Like RFK Jr., conspiracy, nutty, crazy individual that is way out of his league. He's got this, supposed to be his job to be more professional for the American citizens' health. What's the title of his job? Just bear with me. Sorry. The House Secretary, I think his job is Health Secretary. So those priorities, his priorities with that he is unqualified for the job. He's a paranoid conspiracy nut thinking that vaccines are somehow a problem, somehow autism doesn't only happens in children. He claims, look, the propagation of better knowledge out there helped science to evolve and understanding biology, diagnosis evolved, vaccinations evolved. It all evolved and went in progress alongside with many other aspects of itself, subdivisions. So we had diagnosis of autism increasing because people knew what to look for more and more. It turns out that it used to be thought of as generally males tend to be more at risk of autism than girls. However, it doesn't really show up in terms of certain behaviors as much in girls as it does in other things, and it's still a problem. It's just that, they're getting better and better at diagnosing, and then now you got more and more girls and women being diagnosed. It's not just children. Either, but RFK Jr. blurts out it's only children are being diagnosed. That there are no claims that there are no adult autistics. Well, I know from experience that is wrong. A friend of mine who is autistic, not to a level that is too much of a detriment to them, but they have there are some typical traits of autism in them. They're an adult. They're not a child. They're an adult, definitely, and they won't even apologise, which is part of sometimes in autism you get a difficulty reading people, or you can come across a bit callous and unfeeling, and sometimes he'll turn around and actually apologise. Sorry, I didn't mean it that way, or whatever, and it's fine. I understand. And they would actually feel awkward and guilty about upsetting somebody because it's difficult for them to understand how put themselves in other people's viewpoint or read people here and there. That's one of the problems. He does have some like things have to be just so. That's another trait. Like he would talk about his desk at home, completely unlike my desk at the moment. He would have a fit, not literally. So it would worry him and make him feel anxiety if he saw my messy desk at the moment. If that was his desk, really. But it's my desk, no problem. If it was his desk, everything would have to be lined up, straight lines, and ordered and structured so that he knows where everything is, and it's more efficient for him. And I can understand that a bit. It's messy at the moment. When it is more ordered, of course, it's more efficient for me. So I'm going to have a tidy up soon anyway, but that's a perfect example. Everything he blurts out is based on nothing. Everything he's talking about is not even remotely related to anything that would be related to whatever goes on as a health secretary in a true democracy. The guy is a complete idiot. But this gone full circle. You dumbed everyone down, and then you dumbed yourself down, and you're still addicted to power. And this is what this is. Education saves people's lives. Remove any importance of education and funding for it, you end up with tribalistic idiots who don't know what they're doing, but will pretend that they're important, and it's all pretend. It's all like, oh, here's a title. I mean, I'm important. Look at my job title. I'm in this authority. It's like, yeah, no wonder people were thinking like it's a land of the free, a liberal land of opportunity, because any idiot could have a go. And then you got nobody leading anyone. It's just complete chaos. The whole ship is sinking. Right, moving forward, again, a bit ranty, yes. What we think... Sorry, Sorry, again, I read that bit. Where was I? Ranks, society... need to play a better role as well. Clearly, the propaganda machine of Russia owed its evolution to the lack of controls against it. And make no mistake, words hold a lot of power when organized at the right time and place in front of the right people, for better or for worse. Yes, very much so. Particularly if the whole work or the whole paragraph of things is designed to be emotional, but doesn't really talk about facts, doesn't talk about a budget, or doesn't talk about why something needs to be defunded so that something else can be funded. We hear a lot about things being defunded, well, we don't hear about, oh, where's our money for that going then? What else are you going to put it on, and so on. That's not business, that's just collapsing everything down. And some of these small cogs in the machinery of how America functioned in the past was to support and be there as a helping hand to some of the bigger cogs in how things were functioning. So you keep removing these bits, it all starts falling like a deck of cards. Now Trump administration wants to do away with the Constitution. You got a complete rewrite here via a dictatorship of somebody who's clearly cognitive decline. He keeps talking about, yet again, talking about he did a cognitive test. He doesn't tell you why he keeps having to do these, other than the emotional talk. Is like, I like doing them. He's being given them because there's clear signs of dementia, and he's clearly not passing them. Because no man who talks the way he does, in the way he struggles, and the way he slurs some of the words as well, is cognitively intact. He's clearly struggling with this, and he doesn't like that, and he has to fantasize like, I aced it. He would make up some bullshit story. And what he's talking about, what he describes the test, what the questions were, and you only got to do a quick search through the internet or ask some experts. They're blurt out, so, oh, that's a test for Alzheimer's or dementia. That's a mental test. That's what that is. He's literally losing his mind, and it clearly, while being clinically insane, really, and he's a great cult leader. That's the only skill he's got, really. He's fantasizes about being a cult leader, a dictator, and this is what he's doing. Well, while everything's just falling apart, maybe it's a silver lining that he is so inept mentally. What if he was more adept mentally, despite the idiocy that Putin might blurt out or Kim Jong might blurt out? You can see that they got more cognitive control, despite the utter crap that they just come out with all the time. Yeah, cognitive controlling, remembering what the hell they said from one day to another, at least. So, where I was reading, if restrictions are mass, social networks, however, mindset. Yeah. If restrictions are imposed on one platform, they would need to be imposed for all. I read that. Where was I? Controlling ranks, role. Better roles are clearly propaganda machine Russia. So we recap a bit. Clearly, the propaganda machine of Russia owed its evolution to the lack of controls against it, and make no mistake, words hold a lot of power when organized at the right time, right place, in front of the right people, for better or for worse. Meta, formerly known as the Facebook Inc., between 2004 to 2005, took on a change of conduct in 2025 that equated to no longer fact-checking information. This means that you, as a customer, a consumer, you as a consumer have an obligation to be more clued in and spread that which is factual against that which is false and fraudulent. The worst information out there is half-truths, especially while people are still too naive in a majority against a minority who are increasingly more educated and clued in because they apply more and more tools to discern facts over spreading of lies. Increasingly, as this evolves, these are the people to watch. They may appear in some cases to be ADD. That's important. This is a very important point here. They may appear in some cases to be attention deficit disorder people. However, I argue, as do others, that this is absolutely not the case. Every time we have a paradigm shift in technologies, there are always two stages of adaptation. Number one, it outstrips our wiser, higher thinking and stimulates us emotionally. Number two, eventually higher thinking catches up. Digital media's influence has caused changes in our behavior and our brains. In this case, the result is an illusion of ADD being caused by the sheer chaos of internet content on some of these platforms. Here's why I say it's an illusion. If you are an avid user of this thing referred to as social media, but not so addicted to be unsocial, then you are one of a slowly increasing amount that is training your brain via the competition against digital media overall. Competition against all the nonsense that's coming through these platforms. Basically, what's going on is not ADD, it's more like IDT, interest deficit training, IDT. But just throw that in. The plethora of ad blocking tools out there are a sheer sign of such things. And your own conduct when you're watching a video and the person who made the video starts talking and now a word from our sponsor, and you end up skipping that very quickly. It's not ADD, it's IDT, interest deficit training. Chances are, just like me, you skip the whole part because the content is in the way multiple times. For example, number one, the ad has nothing to do with the main subject of the video or anything to do with the reason why you watched the video in the first place. Number two, nothing to do with your general product interest at that point in time. Like if the advert is saying buy this particular product, right? Number three, it breaks momentum of interest if it's halfway through the video. Or if you're as impatient as me, you might even ditch watching altogether in favor of more direct content that feels less broken and consistent. There is a solution though. We will get to that in a bit. Our brains are literally competing with this type of media to look for the point and conclusion relating to the first reason to start watching the videos in the first place, or whatever content it is. The counter competition is clickbait content. For instance, I have found myself sometimes to be notoriously focused on the point. Getting there and disregarding anything that is not productive to the conversation subject or point being made to start with. Further, a self-analysis and interest in human behavior, which started off as a venture into reading body language, appears to be showing me that those who are internet savvy or don't use much online, those who are not internet savvy or don't use much online time tend to talk in a larger degree of generalizations before crystallizing the point being made to start with. Something I've noticed. If you are clueless of what tools of basic analysis are, then we got a problem. Let us help you here by laying down a list of very simple actions, simple but powerful. With such larger user bases around the globe with social networks, it's more of an obligation to fact check than not at all. Yet we have lazy owners of these platforms and blatant cowards in place and in charge of such countries' misuse of technical prowess and media. So here's some things to consider. Number one, identify the source. Recognizing the media outlet and its typical political lenience and bias is powerful when dealing with some context. But on its own, it's not enough. Mainstream media outlets are often owned by large corporations, which can influence their content and coverage. So recognizing who owns them will be a key factor in addressing the source. Examine the content. Look at how the media often prioritizes stories that are popular, sensational, or easily digestible, potentially at the expense of in-depth analysis. This is part of the acronym FATE. Get you focusing on things that really don't, overly focus on that one thing while everything else goes on and you bypasses you that you're not focused on. So potentially at the expense of in-depth analysis, there's always another deeper level to consider. Assess the business model. Understand that mainstream media is primarily for profit, so the motive for quality can sometimes be overridden by motives to make money, and then you want more quantity over quality. That's a big problem, and it's very American to have quantity over quality, especially when it comes to important information. This can lead to content tailored to meet the needs of advertisers and sponsors rather than the public interest, or even the interest of educating the public. These sponsors tend to drop funding the moment the content creator veers off an imagined idealistic style that supports the sponsor's products, or at least in their eyes it does. Compare with alternative media. Consider how alternative media outlets over the same topics. Alternative media often provides a more nuanced, detailed, and diverse view of issues, giving voice to marginalized and underrepresented groups. Evaluate credibility. Assess the credibility of information presented. Think in terms of logical reasoning and the typicalities of the subject matter. Of course, realize that mainstream media's credibility has been diminishing, and some journalists are adopting a solidarity approach to reporting. This tends to focus on representing marginalized communities accurately rather than going on bigger picture, on global issues that are being misreported and even sometimes deliberately misinterpreted. Point 6. Analyzing mainstream media involves understanding its role, influence, and credibility within the broader context of information dissemination. Mainstream media typically includes flagship national newspapers, cable news channels, and news networks, and is often defined consistently across political spectrums. According to Pew Internet Research, if you go there, I'll put a link below to the article. There is some spell checking that does need to be corrected after boasting that it's all been corrected. To analyze, point 7, to analyze mainstream media, consider the following steps. Recognize which outlets are considered mainstream. This includes major newspapers, television networks, online news portals that reach a large audience. Also, assess the credibility of the mainstream outlets. Recent studies indicate that mainstream media's credibility diminishing, particularly since America's 2024 presidential election. Understanding the credibility of an outlet can help evaluate the reliability of information presented. Understand their business model. Mainstream media is often profit-driven, which can influence the content produced. Outlets may prioritize stories that are popular, sensational, or easily digestible. I kind of said that above as well. This does need cleaning up. I kind of repeated myself. Compare with alternative media. Engage critically. So develop a critical approach to consuming mainstream media. This includes questioning the motives behind the content. Verify information from multiple sources and considering alternative perspectives and any subject matter. By the following these steps, you can gain deeper understanding of mainstream media and its role in the public opinion and discourse. Track back now to what I said earlier on the broken consistency of media, radicalization and recruitment. RR. The ability to communicate across distances and share user-generated multimedia content inexpensively and in real time have made social media a channel of choice for some violent extremists and militant organizations. So, gotta be careful, because you don't even know sometimes that you're getting information from these violent extremists. There's bot farms being produced as well. Bots commenting underneath your content if you put something out. Looking for you to respond in a vitriolic way, so you're just more focused on that rather than really functioning properly. We are emotional first before we're critical thinking second, and it's being exploited every single day. Thank you for that, and I will go over the article a little bit here and there. It does need some corrections, and once it's corrected, I'll put the link below and have a read yourself. Yeah. There's other articles to come on 3D printing, technologies in the medical industry. I do love that kind of stuff, and there's plenty to talk about and read about and consider. So where are we now? I hope you've enjoyed just me reiterating the article. And these are crucial and important points. You are every single day when it comes to media outlets, news outlets. You are every day. You're being lied to and manipulated. The worst lies out there are half truths because you don't know which bit is true and which bit isn't, and you need to work it out, separate from one from the other. It takes work. It takes mental higher thinking, not just your emotional bite down and respond, which is what these media outlets want, because the drama drives the views and drives the consumption. Again, that's the biggest thing that's gone wrong with America, is keep them entertained, keep them consuming, but facts don't matter. As long as we can keep them consuming, we're making a lot of money out of them. And it's all a power game. Thank you for watching. Take care. I look forward to doing another video soon. Bye.